The alarm systems at Terran Council Space Station Zenith 9 had not made that particular sound in 47 years. Commander Patricia Hayes froze at her console, her coffee cup hovering halfway to her lips. The red warning lights painted her face in crimson as the automated voice announced what should have been impossible. Unidentified vessel emerging from dark space. Signature match, TCS Prometheus. Vessel classification, lost. Patricia set down her cup with shaking hands. The Prometheus. Everyone knew that name. It was taught in schools, remembered in memorials. The deep space exploration vessel had vanished beyond the Orion Spur in 2240, taking 30 brave souls with it. That was 47 years ago. Get me visual confirmation, Patricia ordered, her voice steady despite her racing heart. And alert the council, all of them. The main screen flickered to life, showing the vast darkness of space around Mars. Then, like a ghost stepping through a wall, the Prometheus appeared. The ship looked exactly as it had the day it left Earth orbit. Pristine, undamaged, its hull reflecting the distant sunlight. No signs of wear, no battle scars, nothing to explain where it had been for nearly half a century. Commander, her communications officer called out. We're receiving a signal from the Prometheus. It's their old identification code. From 2240. Are they responding to hails? Negative. The signal is automated. They're not answering any direct communication attempts. Within an hour, the space around Zenith 9 was crowded, not just with human ships, but with vessels from across the galaxy. The reptilian Iskarish Empire sent 3 warships. The Collective, a hive-minded species that communicated through quantum entanglement, dispatched their observer sphere. Even the ancient Vadran Ascendancy, who rarely involved themselves in galactic affairs, sent a delegation. Everyone wanted to know, where had the Prometheus been? Patricia led the first contact team herself. They crossed the empty space between Zenith 9 and the Prometheus in a small shuttle, suited up and armed, though no one knew what they might find. The Prometheus's airlock opened at their approach, as if the ship had been expecting them. Inside, everything was perfect. Too perfect. The corridors were clean, the lights worked, the air was breathable. It looked like the crew had just stepped away for a moment. Patricia's team moved through the ship in silence, their footsteps echoing in the empty halls. They found the crew in the cryo-sleep chambers. All 23 survivors. The mission had lost 7 people to various accidents over the years, according to the records they found. But these 23 were alive, frozen in time, their vital signs stable. Wake them, Patricia ordered. Carefully. They've been under for, we don't know how long. But when her tech team tried to access the ship's computers, they found almost nothing. The entire database had been wiped clean. Navigation logs, scientific data, personal journals, all gone. Everything except one file, sitting alone in the root directory. The file was named, Do Not Follow Our Route. The first person to wake was Dr. Sarah Chen, the ship's chief scientist. Her eyes opened slowly, confused as the cryo-sleep chamber hissed open. Patricia was there helping her sit up. Dr. Chen, can you hear me? You're safe. You're back at Mars orbit. Sarah's eyes focused on Patricia's face. Mars, but we were only gone for 6 months. The mission was supposed to last 3 years. Patricia's throat tightened. Dr. Chen, what year do you think it is? 2241. We left in 2240, spent 6 months exploring the outer regions past Orion. Why? Doctor, Patricia said gently, it's 2287. You've been gone for 47 years. The color drained from Sarah's face. Behind them, other crew members were waking up, all of them confused, all of them asking the same questions. Captain Marcus Webb, the mission commander, was the last to wake. He listened to Patricia's explanation with growing disbelief. That's impossible, he said. We would remember. We kept detailed logs. He trailed off, a strange look crossing his face. The archive. We found the archive. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from every major species filled the massive chamber on Earth. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 20 years, and it had been a rocky relationship. Many species viewed humans as dangerous, unpredictable, too young and reckless to be trusted with advanced technology. And now, a human ship had returned from somewhere unknown, its crew talking about discoveries that made even the ancient species nervous. The Prometheus crew was kept in a secure medical facility on Luna, while the Council debated. Teams of scientists studied them, trying to understand what had happened. The crew members showed no signs of aging beyond the 6 months they remembered. Medical scans revealed something strange. There were microscopic structures in their bodies that shouldn't be there, woven into their neural tissue like delicate spider webs. During her 5th interrogation session, Dr. Sarah Chen sat across from a Vedran investigator. The Vedran were tall, elegant beings who had been exploring space when humans were still living in caves. They treated younger species with a mixture of patience and condescension. Dr. Chen, the investigator said in perfect English, "You must tell us what you found. The Council has the right to know. Humanity's place in the galactic community depends on your cooperation." Sarah stared at her hands. They looked the same as they always had, but she could feel something different inside her. A knowledge that hadn't been there before. An understanding that scared her. "We found them," she whispered. "We found the ones who came before." The investigator leaned forward. "Who? What did you find?" Sarah looked up, and there was something in her eyes that made the ancient Vedran uncomfortable. It was fear. Deep primal fear. "The predecessors," Sarah said. "The civilization that came before all of you. Before the Vedran, before the Skaresh, before everyone. They built an archive in the void between, the empty space on all your charts. They left everything there. Their history, their technology, their warnings." "Warnings about what?" Sarah's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "About what's coming back." The secure research facility on Luna was built into the moon's surface, hidden from view and protected by the best security technology Earth had. Inside, Dr. Sarah Chen sat in a white room, surrounded by scientists and security officers who watched her every move. "Tell us about the archive," the lead investigator said. He was human, a gray-haired man named Dr. James Mitchell who had spent his career studying ancient civilizations. From the beginning, Sarah closed her eyes, remembering. The memories felt both distant and immediate, as if they had happened yesterday and a lifetime ago. "We were exploring the region past the Orion Spur," she began. "It's marked as empty space on all the galactic charts. Every species calls it something different. The void between, the dead zone, the nothing. We wanted to know why. Why would such a large area of space be completely empty? We found it 3 months into our mission. At first, our sensors couldn't even detect it. The structure was so massive, so far beyond anything we understood, that our instruments didn't know what they were looking at. Captain Webb thought it was a sensor malfunction." Dr. Mitchell leaned forward. "What was it?" "A library," Sarah said. "A vast archive built by the predecessors. It was bigger than Jupiter, made of materials we couldn't identify. The whole structure was designed to last forever, waiting for someone to find it." She opened her eyes, looking directly at the investigator. "They left it there on purpose. They wanted to be found. They wanted someone to know what happened to them. The recordings from the Prometheus showed what happened next. Captain Marcus Webb had led a team into the archive, wearing pressure suits and carrying enough equipment to survive for weeks if needed. The entrance had opened at their approach, as if the structure recognized them as intelligent life. Inside, they found rooms that stretched forever. Walls covered with data storage units, billions upon billions of them. Each one contained information in formats they could barely understand. But the archive was smart, it adapted to them. Within hours, it began presenting information in ways they could read. "The predecessors were a galaxy-spanning civilization," Sarah continued. "They existed 50,000 years ago, long before any current species evolved intelligence. They built wonders across every star system. They mastered space, time, energy, everything. For 20,000 years, they were the masters of this galaxy. Then what happened to them?" Dr. Mitchell asked, though something in his voice suggested he already knew the answer would be bad. "They didn't die," Sarah said. "They fled. They discovered something coming from beyond the galaxy. Something they couldn't fight, couldn't reason with, couldn't escape, so they did the only thing they could. They left." The room fell silent. Outside, through the reinforced windows, Earth hung in the black sky like a blue marble. The archive contained warnings in every language they knew, Sarah said. Thousands of languages from species that don't exist anymore. All saying the same thing: they are coming back. The convergence is inevitable. Prepare or die. Over the next week, the Prometheus crew was questioned repeatedly. Each crew member remembered the same things, though some details varied. They all remembered the archive. They all remembered the warnings. And they all remembered making a choice. Captain Webb explained it during his interrogation. We knew we couldn't bring the archive back. It was too big, too complex. But we also knew humanity needed to know about it. So we found another way. What way? The investigator demanded. Webb touched his temple. The archive offered us a choice. It could store information in our bodies, in our cells, using technology we don't understand. Nano-storage, molecular encoding, something beyond our science. We could carry the most important data with us. You let an alien structure alter your bodies? The investigator looked horrified. We didn't have a choice, Webb said quietly. If we didn't bring back the information, humanity would face what's coming with no warning, no preparation. We took the risk. The medical team confirmed it. Each crew member carried vast amounts of data woven into their neural tissue and DNA. The structures were so advanced that human science could barely detect them, let alone understand them. But they were there waiting to be accessed. Then the strange symptoms began. Crew members started exhibiting abilities they shouldn't have. Dr. Chen could solve complex mathematical problems in seconds that should take hours. Lieutenant Maria Santos could predict equipment failures before they happened. Captain Webb found himself understanding alien languages he had never studied, and they all shared the same dreams. Dark dreams of something vast and terrible, moving through the emptiness between galaxies. Getting closer, the political situation deteriorated rapidly. The Scarish Empire demanded that Earth hand over the Prometheus crew immediately. Their ambassador made his position clear during an emergency council session. Humanity is too young, too reckless to possess this knowledge, the ambassador hissed, his reptilian features twisted in anger. You have been part of the galactic community for barely 20 years. You cannot be trusted with technology from the predecessors. Hand over the crew and all data or face the consequences. Earth's representative, Ambassador Chen Lin, stood her ground. The crew are human citizens. They volunteered for a mission of exploration. Whatever they found as representatives of Earth. We will not hand them over. Then you risk war, the Scarish ambassador said. But before the argument could escalate further, something happened that changed everything. The long-range sensors at the edge of the galaxy detected anomalies. Gravitational distortions unlike anything seen before. Space itself was bending, warping, as if something massive was pushing through from outside. Dr. Sarah Chen was in the medical facility when the news came through. She felt it before anyone told her. A sharp pain behind her eyes followed by a flood of information. Images, concepts, warnings from the data stored in her body. It's them, she said to the empty room. The Devourers. That's what the predecessors called them. They're coming back, she called for Dr. Mitchell urgently. When he arrived, she was writing equations on the white walls with a marker, filling every surface with complex mathematics. We have 18 months, she said without stopping her writing. The gravitational signatures match the patterns in the archive. The predecessors documented everything before they left. The Devourers move through dark space, areas we can't see or measure. But when they get close to normal space, they create these distortions. 18 months until they reach the outer systems. 2 years until they reach Earth. Dr. Mitchell stared at the equations. He was a brilliant scientist, but he could barely understand what she was writing. What are they? He asked. Sarah stopped writing and turned to face him. Her eyes looked different now, older somehow, filled with knowledge that shouldn't be there. The archive didn't have complete information, she said. The predecessors fled before they could fully understand. But they knew enough to be terrified. The Devourers exist partially outside our dimension. They feed on consciousness, on energy, on the fundamental forces that hold reality together. They consumed dozens of galaxies before the predecessors even evolved. Can they be stopped? The predecessors didn't think so. That's why they left. They found a way to evolve beyond physical form, to exist in a state the Devourers couldn't touch. They went somewhere else, somewhere safe, and sealed the passages behind them. But the archive, Sarah continued, contained something else, something the predecessors left behind just in case another civilization rose up before the Devourers returned. Technology, weapons, a fighting chance. She touched her temple. It's all here in us. We're the key, the Prometheus crew. We're carrying the blueprints for weapons that might actually work against them. When the Galactic Council learned about the approaching threat, panic spread like wildfire. Some species wanted to flee immediately. following the predecessor's example. Others wanted to fight but had no idea how. The Vadran ascendancy called for calm and rational discussion, but even they seemed shaken. Because the Vadran, the oldest and wisest species in the galaxy, had a secret of their own. And now, faced with extinction, they finally revealed it. Their entire civilization was built on predecessor ruins. Every piece of their advanced technology, every ship, every weapon, all of it was reverse-engineered from fragments they had found over thousands of years. They weren't the wise ancient species everyone thought they were. They were scavengers living in the shadow of a greater civilization. And if the predecessors, with all their power, had chosen to flee rather than fight, what hope did anyone have? The United Nations Assembly Chamber had never been so crowded. Every seat was filled with people standing in the aisles and watching from overflow rooms. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. This was about survival. Secretary General Maria Santos stood at the podium, her face projected on screens across the planet. Behind her, holographic displays showed the approaching threat. Red markers at the galaxy's edge, moving inward like a spreading infection. 18 months, she said. That's how long we have before the Devourers reach inhabited space. The Galactic Council has called an emergency summit. Every species will send representatives. But I want to be clear about Earth's position. She paused, letting her words sink in. We will not run. We will not hide. Humanity will fight. The chamber erupted in applause, but not everyone was cheering. Some voices called for caution, for diplomacy, for considering all options. But Maria's mind was made up. We have something the predecessors left us, she continued. Technology, weapons, a chance, and we're going to use it. The Galactic Council meeting was chaos. Species that had spent centuries in polite cooperation now shouted at each other across the chamber. The Scarish wanted to build a massive fleet and meet the threat head-on. The collective suggested evacuating to the next galaxy. The Vadran called for more study, more time to understand what they were facing. Humanity proposed something different. Ambassador Chen Lin presented Earth's plan. The Prometheus crew carries the knowledge we need. With their help, we can build defensive platforms using predecessor technology. We can create weapons specifically designed to fight extra-dimensional threats. And you expect us to trust human judgment with this? The Scarish ambassador hissed. You are children playing with forces you don't understand. We're the only ones doing anything, Ambassador Chen shot back. While you debate and argue, we're taking action. We're building. We're preparing. Join us or don't, but we won't sit here waiting to die. The vote was divided. Half the species pledged to work with Earth. The other half remained uncommitted, watching and waiting. But humanity had never needed permission before, and they didn't need it now. Construction began immediately. Earth's orbital shipyards worked around the clock, building new vessels based on designs pulled from the Prometheus crew's enhanced minds. Dr. Sarah Chen spent her days interfacing with computer systems, translating predecessor technology into something humans could understand and build. The work was exhausting. Every day, Sarah felt the information flowing through her like trying to drink from a fire hose. The nanostructures in her brain allowed her to access knowledge, but it came with a price. Headaches, disorientation, moments where she couldn't remember if she was Sarah Chen or something else. Captain Webb experienced similar problems. The military had put him in charge of training crews on the new predecessor hybrid ships. The vessels were unlike anything in the human fleet. They responded to thought as much as physical controls. Only the Prometheus crew could fully interface with them. We're becoming something else, Webb told Sarah one evening as they reviewed construction progress. The more we access this knowledge, the less human we feel. Sarah nodded. She had felt it too. Like standing at the edge of a vast ocean, feeling the pull of deep waters. The predecessors left instructions, she said quietly. Not just for weapons, for transformation. They showed us how they evolved, how they became something the Devourers couldn't touch. Could we do the same? Maybe, but we'd have to be willing to give up everything we are. Our physical bodies, our individual consciousness. We'd become something entirely new. Webb was quiet for a long moment. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Not everyone on Earth supported the military buildup. Protests erupted in major cities. People carried signs saying, "Peace, not war," and "Don't sacrifice humanity." They argued that working with alien technology was changing what it meant to be human, that Earth should focus on evacuation rather than confrontation. But the protesters were in the minority. Most humans looked at the approaching threat and made the same choice their ancestors had always made when faced with extinction: fight back. 3 months into the construction effort, the first attack came. Not from the Devourers. They were still months away. This attack came from within. A group of extremists from multiple species, calling themselves the Preservation Front, launched coordinated strikes against Earth's shipyards. They believed that using predecessor technology was unnatural, that it would corrupt and destroy the civilizations that employed it. Better to die pure than live as monsters, their leader proclaimed in a broadcast sent across the galaxy. The attacks were coordinated and devastating. 2 orbital platforms were destroyed. Hundreds of workers died. But Earth's response was swift and brutal. Human security forces, working with loyal alien species, tracked down the extremists within weeks. The trial was quick. The terrorists were sentenced to life imprisonment, and construction resumed with even greater urgency. 6 months before the projected arrival of the Devourers, Dr. Sarah Chen made a breakthrough. She was working late in her lab when suddenly the knowledge she had been accessing clicked into place. She understood. She called an emergency meeting with Earth's leadership. Captain Webb, Ambassador Chen, Secretary General Santos, and the heads of every major space agency crowded into a secure conference room. "I know what the Devourers are," Sarah said without preamble. "The predecessors had partial data, but I've been able to reconstruct more from the fragments in my memory." She brought up a holographic display. It showed something that hurt to look, had shapes that existed in too many dimensions, colors that shouldn't exist. "They're not aliens in any sense we understand," Sarah explained. "They're living concepts, entities that exist partially outside normal space-time. They feed on dimensional energy, the fundamental forces that hold our reality together. Consciousness, matter, space itself. Everything is food to them. The predecessors encountered them 50,000 years ago. The Devourers had already consumed dozens of galaxies. They move slowly, taking centuries to fully devour a galaxy, but they're unstoppable. Every weapon the predecessors used just fed them more energy." "So how do we fight them?" Secretary General Santos demanded. Sarah hesitated. "The weapons in the archive. They're not designed to kill the Devourers. They're designed to wound them, to drive them away temporarily. The predecessors created them as a delaying tactic, something to buy time for their escape." The room fell silent. "You're saying we can't win," Webb said quietly. "I'm saying the predecessors couldn't win, but they were trying to save their entire civilization. We only need to save this galaxy. If we can drive the Devourers back, seal the dimensional passages they used to travel, we might survive." "Might," Santos repeated. "What are the odds?" Sarah met her eyes. The predecessors estimated a 12% chance of success for this strategy, but they never tried it. They chose to leave instead. 12%, Santos said. Better than 0. Then came the day that changed everything. The sensors detected something wrong at the galactic rim. Stars were going dark, not exploding, not collapsing, just vanishing, as if they had never existed. Dozens at first, then hundreds. The Devourers weren't coming slowly anymore. They had accelerated. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Even the species that had refused to help now begged for Earth's aid. The Scarish Emperor himself contacted humanity directly. "We were wrong," the Emperor said, his pride clearly wounded. "Humanity has shown courage while we showed fear. The Empire places all our resources at your disposal. Tell us how to fight." Similar messages came from species across the galaxy. Everyone understood now. There was no escape, no time to flee. There was only one choice: stand and fight together or die alone. The combined fleet began assembling. Human ships equipped with predecessor weapons, Scarish warships providing muscle, Vedran vessels carrying their ancient knowledge. Even, the collective contributed their hive consciousness to coordinate the defense. And at the center of it all were the 23 members of the Prometheus crew, each one serving as a living interface between the old technology and new desperation. 3 weeks before the estimated arrival, Dr. Sarah Chen received a message. Not through any communication system, the knowledge simply appeared in her mind, drawn from the data stored in her cells, a final gift from the predecessors, a secret they had kept hidden even from their own people. There was another way. The first contact with the Devourers came without warning. A patrol fleet near the galactic rim simply stopped responding. Then their life signs vanished, not dead, just gone, as if they had never existed. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the restructured Prometheus, now a hybrid vessel combining human engineering with predecessor technology. The ship hummed with power that felt alive, responding to his thoughts as much as his commands. "All ships, battle stations," he ordered. "This is not a drill." Around him, the combined galactic fleet moved into defensive positions. Thousands of ships from dozens of species united for the first time in history. Human vessels with their predecessor weapons, Scarish warships bristling with conventional arms, Vedran cruisers carrying ancient defensive technology, the collective sphere ships humming with coordinated consciousness. And then they saw them. The Devourers were not ships or creatures in any normal sense. They appeared as tears in reality itself, dark wounds in space where the laws of physics broke down. Looking at them caused pain, as if the human brain couldn't process what it was seeing, shapes that existed in too many dimensions, colors that had no names, movements that defied geometry. They moved through space like sharks through water, and everywhere they passed, matter simply ceased to exist. Stars blinked out, planets dissolved, even light seemed to die in their presence. "Fire at will," Webb commanded. The fleet opened up with everything they had. Conventional weapons, missiles, energy beams, kinetic projectiles, hit the Devourers and passed through them as if they weren't there. The weapons didn't miss. They traveled through the targets and kept going, hitting nothing. "Conventional weapons are useless," the tactical officer reported. "They're not fully in our dimension. The projectiles are going through the empty space where they should be." The Scarish fleet suffered the worst casualties. Their commander, refusing to believe weapons could be ineffective, ordered a full assault. 300 warships charged forward, firing everything they had. The Devourers simply passed through them. Where mighty warships had been, there was nothing. Not wreckage, not debris, just empty space, as if the ships had been erased from reality. "All ships fall back," Webb shouted. "Only vessels equipped with predecessor weapons engage." The Prometheus and the other human ships moved forward. These vessels carried weapons that the predecessors had designed specifically to fight extra-dimensional threats. Dimensional disruptors, reality anchors, quantum destabilizers. They fired. This time the weapons connected. The dimensional disruptors tore at the Devourers' connection to normal space, forcing them to become more solid, more vulnerable. The reality anchors created zones where the laws of physics reasserted themselves, trapping the entities temporarily. The Devourers responded. They didn't fight like any enemy the galaxy had faced before. They simply existed near the attacking ships, and that existence was enough. Reality warped around them. Time moved differently. Some ships aged 1,000 years in seconds, crumbling to dust. Others found their crews gone, not dead, but never having existed in the first place. "We're losing ships faster than we can count," the communications officer reported, her voice tight with fear. "The collective just lost 3 sphere ships. The Vedran report they're losing structural integrity just from being near these things." Webb felt it through his neural connection to the ship. The weight of thousands of lives ending, dimensions collapsing, reality itself screaming in pain. The modifications the archive had made to his body let him perceive things normal humans couldn't. And right now he wished desperately that he couldn't see what he was seeing. "Captain?" Dr. Sarah Chen's voice came through on a secure channel. She was aboard a research vessel behind the front lines, coordinating the use of predecessor weapons. "We need to retreat. Our weapons are hurting them, but not enough. At this rate, we'll all be dead in hours." Fall back to Mars, Webb ordered. All ships defensive retreat. Fire as you go, but don't stop moving. The fleet began a fighting withdrawal, but the Devourers followed. They moved through space faster than any ship could travel, appearing and disappearing, consuming everything in their path. Over the next 72 hours, the galaxy watched in horror as system after system went dark. The outer colonies fell first, then the middle territories. Billions of people evacuated toward the core worlds, but there was nowhere to run. The Devourers were everywhere, spreading like a plague. The Galactic Council's combined military forces had been reduced by half. Entire species faced extinction. And still the Devourers came. Dr. Sarah Chen gathered the surviving Prometheus crew in a secure facility on Earth. All 23 of them were exhausted, their enhanced minds pushed to the breaking point by days of coordinating weapon systems and analyzing combat data. "There's something I need to tell you all," Sarah said. "Something I discovered in the archive data. The predecessors left us more than just weapons. They left us a choice." She brought up a holographic display showing complex equations and diagrams that would mean nothing to anyone who hadn't been modified by the archive. But the Prometheus crew understood immediately. "It's the transformation protocol," Lieutenant Maria Santos breathed. "The process they use to evolve beyond physical form." "Yes," Sarah confirmed. "But there's more. The predecessors were afraid to use this in combat because they didn't know what would happen. The transformation changes you fundamentally. You become something that exists across multiple dimensions, drawing power from the quantum foam of reality itself. In theory, beings who have undergone the transformation could fight the Devourers on their own terms. We would exist partially outside normal space just like them. We could hurt them, maybe even destroy them." "What's the catch?" Captain Webb asked. Sarah met his eyes. "You can't come back. Once you undergo the transformation, you're no longer human in any physical sense. You become something else, something that can never return to normal space permanently." The room fell silent. Each crew member understood what she was saying. They would have to sacrifice everything, their bodies, their lives as humans, their place in the world they knew. They would become weapons, eternal guardians, forever separated from the people they were trying to save. How many would need to transform? Someone asked. "The calculations suggest we need a minimum critical mass," Sarah said. "At least 4 billion transformed beings to effectively fight the Devourers across the entire galaxy." "The more the better." 4 billion, Webb repeated. That's more than half of Earth's current population. "It needs to be volunteers," Sarah said firmly. "People who understand what they're giving up and choose to do it anyway. We can't force this on anyone." The United Nations called for a global vote. Every human on Earth and in the colonies received the information. They saw the combat footage. They understood the stakes. And they were given a choice: volunteer for transformation or remain human and hope others would save them. The alien species watched this with a mixture of fascination and horror. Some called it madness. Others called it the ultimate sacrifice. The Vedran ambassador spoke for many when she addressed the council. To willingly give up your physical existence, your very nature, for a chance to save others. This is either the greatest courage we have ever witnessed or the greatest foolishness. Within 48 hours, the results came in. 4.2 billion humans had volunteered. 72% of humanity had chosen to transform, to become something new, to fight an enemy that couldn't be defeated any other way. "Very human," the Vedran ambassador said quietly when she heard the numbers. "Terrifyingly, beautifully human. You have always been the most willing to change, to adapt, to sacrifice. Perhaps that is why you survived when so many others didn't." The transformation chambers were built according to predecessor specifications. Massive structures that could process millions of people at once, changing them on a fundamental level, rewriting the code of their existence. Dr. Sarah Chen was among the first to volunteer. She stood in the chamber with Captain Webb, Lieutenant Santos, and the rest of the Prometheus crew. Around them, millions of others waited their turn. "Are you scared?" Webb asked her. "Terrified," Sarah admitted. "But I've been scared since the moment we found that archive. Fear doesn't change what needs to be done." The transformation began. Reality bent. Space folded. The volunteers felt their bodies dissolving, their consciousness expanding, their very existence shifting into something new. And then they understood. They were still themselves, still individuals, still human in thought and memory, But they existed across dimensions now, drawing power from the fabric of reality itself. They could see the Devourers clearly now, understand what they were, how they moved, how they fed, and they could fight them. The battle that followed could not be seen by normal eyes. It took place across multiple dimensions, in the spaces between spaces where reality bent and twisted. To those watching from ships and planets, it appeared as flashes of impossible colors, sounds that had no source, and moments where the stars themselves seemed to flicker and change. But to the new humans, as they had begun calling themselves, the battle was clear and terrible. Dr. Sarah Chen, who was no longer quite Sarah Chen, engaged a devourer near the ruins of what had been a thriving colony world. She could see it now in its true form, a vast consciousness that fed on the energy of existence itself. It had no thoughts as she understood them, no goals beyond consumption. It was hunger given form, need made manifest. She struck at it with weapons made of pure thought, dimensional blades that cut across realities. The devourer recoiled, wounded but not destroyed. Around her, she felt the presence of billions of other new humans, all fighting their own battles across the galaxy. They were winning, slowly, painfully, but winning. Captain Marcus Webb fought alongside what had been his crew. In this new form, he could communicate with them instantly, sharing thoughts and strategies faster than any computer network. They moved as one, a coordinated force that the Devourers had never encountered before. They're retreating. Lieutenant Santos's thought voice rang through the quantum consciousness they shared. Sector 7, the Devourers are falling back. Webb felt it too. The tide was turning. The Devourers, for the first time in their ancient existence, were facing beings who could match them. Beings who existed across dimensions just as they did, but who fought with purpose and coordination the Devourers lacked. The battle raged for weeks in normal time, though for the new humans it felt both longer and shorter. Time was strange in the spaces they now inhabited, but gradually, inexorably, they pushed the Devourers back. The turning point came when Sarah discovered something the predecessors had never known. The Devourers were not invincible. They were parasites existing by draining energy from other dimensions. But if you could seal those dimensions, cut off their food supply, they would weaken and eventually fade. We need to collapse the rifts, she communicated to the other new humans. Seal the passages between dimensions permanently. It's the only way to stop them from returning. Can it be done? Webb asked. Yes, but it requires power. A lot of power. We'll need to channel energy from across the galaxy, focus it through the quantum foam that connects all of reality. It will hurt, maybe destroy some of us in the process. Then we do it, Webb said simply. We didn't come this far to stop now. The new humans gathered their strength. 4 billion transformed beings spread across the galaxy, all focusing their power toward a single purpose. They reached into the fabric of reality itself, grasped the dimensional barriers that the Devourers used to travel, and pulled them closed. Reality screamed. Space folded. Time stuttered. Those watching from normal space saw the stars go dark, then blaze with impossible brightness. Planets shook. Ships were tossed about by waves of gravitational distortion, and then suddenly it was over. The Devourers were gone, not destroyed, but driven back into the spaces between galaxies, sealed away from the dimensional passages they needed to feed and travel. The rifts were closed, reinforced by barriers that would last for millions of years. The galaxy was safe, but the price had been paid in full. Dr. Sarah Chen felt herself settling into her new existence. She was still Sarah, still remembered her life as a human, her friends, her family, her morning coffee and evening walks, but she could never return to that life. She existed now in the spaces between, forever watching the dimensional barriers, making sure the Devourers never returned. She reached out with her transformed consciousness and found Captain Webb. They stood together, if standing was the right word, in a place that was everywhere and nowhere. Do you regret it? Webb asked. Sarah considered the question. Below them, though below had no meaning here, she could see Earth, blue and beautiful and alive. On its surface, 2 billion humans continued their lives, saved by the sacrifice of their transformed brothers and sisters. No, she said. We're still us. We're still human where it matters. In our courage, our choice to protect others, our refusal to accept extinction, we just had to become something more. One final communication came from the new humans to their unchanged siblings. It was broadcast across every channel, in every language, to every species in the galaxy. We are still here. We are still human. We watch the barriers and guard the gates. Live well, build wonders, reach for the stars. We sacrificed our physical forms, but we did not lose ourselves. We became what we needed to be, and we would make the same choice again. The message ended with a single, beautiful thought that every being in the galaxy felt at the same moment. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy, the willingness to become whatever survival demands. Without losing who we are, the galaxy began to rebuild. The war had been devastating. Entire systems had been lost, billions had died, and civilizations had been shattered. But they survived, and survival meant hope. Earth became a place of pilgrimage. Beings from across the galaxy came to see the homeworld of the species that had saved them all. Some came to give thanks. Others came to try to understand what would drive an entire species to sacrifice themselves so completely. The remaining humans built monuments to their transformed kin. Not graves, because the new humans weren't dead. They were out there in the spaces between spaces, forever watching, forever protecting. The Galactic Council underwent massive changes. The old hierarchies based on age and power collapsed. In their place rose a new understanding, that courage and sacrifice mattered more than ancient wisdom. That being willing to change was more valuable than clinging to the past. Humanity, though reduced in number, was given a permanent seat on the council. Not because they were the strongest or the oldest, but because they had proven themselves willing to do what others wouldn't. They had adapted when adaptation was necessary. They had changed when change was the only option. The Scarish Emperor personally apologized to Earth's ambassador. "We called you reckless," he said. "We called you dangerous and unpredictable. We were right, but we failed to understand that those qualities can save a galaxy as easily as they can threaten one." The Vadran Ascendancy shared all their accumulated knowledge freely now, no longer hoarding their predecessor technology. They had learned humility from watching a younger species succeed where they had been too afraid to try. Even the collective, who had always believed their hive consciousness made them superior, acknowledged that individual choice and personal sacrifice had proven more powerful than their coordinated unity. 50 years after the war ended, a new vessel was launched from Earth orbit, the TCS Prometheus II, named in honor of the ship that had started everything. This new Prometheus was built with both human and alien technology, crewed by volunteers from a dozen different species. Its mission, to explore the unknown regions of space, to discover what lay beyond the mapped territories, to boldly go where no one had gone before. The captain, a young human woman named Maya Webb, granddaughter of Marcus Webb, stood on the bridge as they prepared to launch. She knew her grandfather was out there somewhere, watching from between dimensions, proud of what humanity had become. As the ship's engines powered up, Maya recorded the traditional captain's log, her voice steady and proud. "Captain's log, TCS Prometheus II, first entry. We launched today into the unknown, carrying with us the lessons our transformed kin taught the galaxy. The predecessors taught us that sometimes running is necessary, but humanity taught everyone else something more important, that adaptation is survival, that change is strength, and that sacrifice can save the future. We learned that you don't defeat extinction by staying the same. You defeat it by being willing to become whatever you need to be." 4 billion humans gave up their physical existence to save the galaxy. They became something new, something powerful, something eternal, and they did it by choice. That's humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not weapons or technology or bravery. It's the understanding that survival sometimes demands transformation. But transformation doesn't mean losing yourself. We changed because we had to, but we stayed human where it mattered most, in our courage, our curiosity, and our absolute refusal to give up. Whatever comes next, whatever challenges we face in the depths of space, we'll face them the way humanity always has, together and willing to evolve. Because that's who we are, that's who we've always been. This is Captain Maya Webb of the TCS Prometheus II, beginning our journey into the unknown. To those who watch from between dimensions, to those who sacrificed everything to give us this chance, we won't waste it. We'll live, we'll explore, we'll grow, and we'll never forget what you gave us. The ship launched, accelerating toward the edge of known space. Behind it, Earth spun peacefully in the void. Above it, Invisible to normal sight, the new humans kept their eternal watch. And in the quantum spaces between dimensions, Dr. Sarah Chen smiled with very human satisfaction. They had done it. They had saved the galaxy. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology, but their absolute refusal to accept defeat. The Devourers were sealed away. The dimensional barriers would hold for millions of years, and if they ever weakened, the new humans would be there waiting, watching, ready, forever changed, forever human, forever free.